Welcome to the Tech Savvy Professor podcast, which features two faculty members who love tech and love making it part of their work. I'm Marty at Kent State University.
And I'm Eric Perry at Divine Mercy University.
So Eric, we always knock around ideas, and I have had today's idea sitting in my inbox for weeks. Somebody's like, you need to check this out. And then I offered another idea that we'll talk about. So we're going to talk about two apps, essentially. One is NotebookLM, which I think is kind of a weird title for it. I guess they couldn't just go with notebook. Do you know what the LM is for? Is it language model or?
I think so, yeah. I don't really understand it either, but the concept, I guess, around notebook makes sense.
Yeah. And then SlideSpeak, which is a application that a colleague of mine turned me on to. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So why don't you take us through NotebookLM?
Yeah, so NotebookLM is an experimental Google feature that they've added that will allow you to upload sources and generate a two-person podcast, at least two-person right now. And if that sounds strange, so you upload whatever material, whatever sources you have, and it will generate a podcast with an interviewer and an expert, and they will talk about whatever reading materials you've posted there. Now, the really interesting thing about this is it's very conversational. You'll catch things like breath sounds, and they'll tell each other little jokes, and there's cadence to the conversation. And from what I've noticed thus far, the source material that you upload, they stay pretty true to what's there. So it essentially will provide you a summary in this podcast format with these two AI generated voices talking back and forth, providing you with a different way to, I guess, consume the material. It's pretty neat. I've tried it with a couple of different articles. I tried it with, the first thing I tried it with actually was a source on AI detection in academia, and had AI tell me about detecting AI. But I was pretty blown away, to be honest, with the kind of casual nature of the conversation and how real it sounds.
Yeah, I tried it. And then I was going to email my co-authors. There's a book chapter I just completed. And I said, well, this is some product that I have created, so I know it pretty intently.
Mm-hmm.
And I uploaded the book chapter and had to upload it in PDF form. And it digested it. And then I listened to the audio podcast, or whatever they call it. They call it a deep dive. We're doing a deep dive into, and then
Sure.
the topic. Those folks were too damn chipper for me. They were so happy to talk about a topic that I don't think is as exciting as they make it sound. I did catch some cases, particularly with the Turkish names in the piece that I'd written. They mispronounced those. Remarkably, they got my name correct, which is always mispronounced. But they kind of messed up on the Turkish names. It followed the flow of the materials that I did, and as I had them organized. And I thought, well, this is pretty cool. I don't like the output. I'd rather have you and I talk about the article, because it just seemed so polishedly chipper about a topic that just doesn't seem natural. Now, folks might want to consume that information that way by listening to it. But frankly, I think you get some of that lost in the process. It then becomes just general themes, which is maybe all we ever retain from anything we read anyways. But it just seemed like it had taken this. It was about 17 minutes long by the time it was done. And so, I'd heard about this podcast, kind of AI podcast generating piece of this. So that was the thing I wanted to jump to, but it does a lot more as an app. There are options for helping me understand the situation, critique it, suggest related ideas, create an outline of whatever you've submitted. And I think you can submit multiple documents and select them all, and then from that generate it. I was really excited about this. I said, this is funky, but I got to share it with my co-authors. And then I realized I had just uploaded a yet to be published article to Google.
Whoops.
So I should have stopped right there. I did I did not email, people involved in the production of this article. And but it was my test flight for Notebook LM. Frankly, I think it has potential for students and maybe even abuse
Mhm.
in the traditional form. Like, I don't have to read the article anymore. I'll just have Notebook LM do all the summarization and stuff that I need to do with it.
Right. Well,
Uh,
and the biggest point that you made too is that it's a summary. So it leaves out detail a lot of the time. So they're really working on capturing those main themes. And if you're looking at something technical, like I wanted it to tell me the strategies around detecting AI in academic work. And it gave me some general tips, but it did miss some of the specifics around what the article had suggested. So it grabbed like the big themes. I was most kind of enamored by that feature, worried it was going to put us out of business as podcasters,
you
but
put us out of business.
yeah,
You're making this sound like this is a
just
revenue generating business.
from all the royalties we gather.
Yeah.
Um,
All
but
I'm generating is money given to microphone companies, basically.
yeah, yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, I just thought that was the most interesting feature because ChatGPT can do some of this too,
Yeah.
right? It can do some of this summarization, and you can upload documents into ChatGPT. It was just an interesting kind of unique feature, I think, and it does. They tag it as experimental everywhere, right? They want you to know this is not even beta yet. This is just the test run.
But it is Google and it's your information, and that's why it's free.
Sure.
Let me suggest an app that's like this without the podcast. Elicit, Elicit, and it costs, but it's really kind of more of an academic platform. So whereas this gives you its own kind of create an outline of it, with Elicit, you can upload a journal article that's in PDF form, and you can ask for particular criteria, like what was the hypothesis? What was the data set that came out of it? What was the methodology that they used? So you create an array of what you want exported from an article or a series of articles that you've submitted, and it will export it in a CSV file, CSV or CVS, which is CSV. CVS is where I
Store.
get my prescriptions. Um, so a CSV file, which will, basically a spreadsheet. And it seems to get drilled down more into the data than what Notebook does.
I do. I love that at the very beginning of the site, if you open Elicit, it
Yeah.
says trusted by researchers at. So I don't think Notebook LM is Google's answer to that particular task either.
Yeah. It is pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty cool app. It's costly. I don't know what's the pricing. Looking at it, basic is zero. That's free, but very limited. And then plus is $10 a month. If it's done, and excuse me, it's $12 a month or $10 a month if you do an annual on it. Yeah, I've had more people come to me and talk about Notebook LM, and that's why I had it, and I said I'll look at it at some point. And then you suggested it as a topic for today.
Yeah, it was one that I wasn't aware of. I actually saw it on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting some airtime on social media, and folks are already using it for this kind of summary of academic information.
Well, I want to talk about another one. I think folks should check out Notebook LM and SlideSpeak. SlideSpeak is an application that person in our IT department said, you ought to look at this because she said, is there any good AI ways to generate PowerPoint slides? And she was on the search for it. And there are some, if you pay for ChatGPT, you get some ability to patch in some programs, and they do have some ones that are create your PowerPoints from
Mhm.
whatever you put in. They're not very good though. They kind of a limited format. They don't capture what you want, and the format looks kind of clunky, as I said. But then when you export it, it's really hard to edit any of the slides. It seems like they throw a solid background on it, and then it makes it a mess to try and essentially change the background, change the design on it, or anything that you want to do. Um, so this friend of mine, well, the IT person said, "Have you looked at SlideSpeak?" And I was like, "No." She said, "It's expensive, but they happen to have, at the time, this was a couple of weeks ago, they happen to have a lifetime license that's like 40 or 50% off." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to push the button on this, but it better be good." And I did pay for a lifetime license because it was cheaper than paying for an annual license. Although you can do monthly and check it out and see if it's worth your effort. And I figured, well, I might not do but 2 or 3 PowerPoints or less a month. So I might as well pull the trigger and just have it for a lifetime, trusting this IT person. Really pretty interesting results. I took a article that was to test it. Basically, I took an article that was about broaching in counseling and supervision. And it was done by one of the students of mine who graduated with his doctorate here and is now teaching. And he led that team up to be able to do this Q study. And I ran it through there. And Eric, before the show, I sent you what the output was, what the article was, and what the output was, just so you could get a sense of what the output with this is. They give you about 8 to 10 different options for PowerPoint outputs. Some of the options are labeled as, well, you're not going to be able to do your own design or background colors or things like that on this, or you can't brand this one. And other ones are kind of more open in terms of the branding and the design functions that you can do in terms of altering stuff with the PowerPoint. But let me tell you, the output from this was really impressive. You get to choose, once you've uploaded the content, whether it's one article, 3 articles, whatever, you get to choose, do you want an 8 slide one? Do you want a 8 to 12 slide one? Do you want a 20 slide one? Or do you customize it? You tell us. And it did a really remarkable job of the content of that article being put into a PowerPoint fashion for presenting as an output. So I think that will be, I will have to look at the content that I want generated and then put it in there and to see what comes out. But I was impressed with, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at any of the stuff.
I did, yeah. I tooled around with it a little bit after you sent it. Open the example you gave. I think it does a nice job with the graphics.
Mm-hmm.
I did my free upload. You can upload one for free just to see what it does. I actually used an article from our techniques course. So it's kind of similar to the one you sent, except it was more focused on skills. It wasn't a research article.
Yeah.
But the options there are great. I like the infographics so that
Mm-hmm.
it took some of that information and it's not just bulleted or kind of piled on the slides, but it created some infographics out of what it had, which I think makes your PowerPoints a little more interesting. The graphical elements too that it selected were on theme and the colors matched, and it wasn't this kind of copy paste format that you get out of ChatGPT or even from making your own from templates. It felt like it was, made custom.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their homepage right now, and until October 18th, there's a limited lifetime premium plus access for $399. Oh, and I tried to get more information on that, and it immediately took me to the way to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't generate a whole lot of PowerPoint,
Hmm.
but I would think if I was, doing a lot of new course prep, it would be really useful. I never like to use the PowerPoints that come with the textbooks. I've seen some faculty
No.
do that. They provide you with stuff, but, I want to tailor it to what I want. And I think this would be a really useful tool for that.
Yeah. So, two apps that we talked about, Notebook LM, and then this second one around SlideSpeak. We also talked about Elicit too. So I'll have this information in the show notes, and so you can click on the links to get to these sites from the podcast show notes. In your podcast server or podcast app. Anything else for today, Eric?
I don't think so. I'm excited to see what other AI tools kind of pop up and about. We might have to do another one of these shows.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. There's some cool stuff coming up. Um, I did something with ChatGPT that I heard about on Reddit. And if you are a frequent enough user of ChatGPT, you should try this. Ask ChatGPT to tell you about yourself based on your histories, queries that you put in ChatGPT.
I'm gonna have to give it a shot.
Oh, it's scary.
I'm not sure what it's gonna say, honestly.
It is really scary. And I've used it for developing bylaw structures and developing strategic plans. And sometimes I use it for constructing really well worded letters with the
Mhm.
content that I want in for a particular student. I've used it in putting together emails that are for me kind of important that I want to make it cover a lot of material and sound very professional. And so I got this description of me, which was pretty much on the mark. It talked about engagement in professional associations. It talked about my writing background and my interests. All of this from apparently things that I've queried through ChatGPT at some point. It even said a couple of things about my personal life that I didn't know ever got into ChatGPT. So, so one of the themes that came out was how difficult I was finding this new position in as a program coordinator. And it's creating a lot of stress for you because you really need more support within the university to be able to do that task. I'm like, where the hell did that figure find that? And it might have been, I don't know, maybe I tried to do took a podcast, took the transcript from it where I mentioned that and put it into Chat GPT to come up with social media posts. Bullets that I could do with social media posts. It did, however, and I can't figure this out, called me a doctoral student at Kent State University. And then within the same description, it went on to say how I was working with doctoral students. So yeah, for a fun time, ask the question based on to ChatGPT, and I'm quoting as best as I can, based on the history of my queries with you, please tell me about myself.
I'm gonna do it,
Uh,
and I'm gonna report back for the next show.
And then the second thing you want to ask is, I saw this in Reddit too. Given my queries and background in history, what would be a fictional character that I would be like? And I tell you, the result I got for that was Dr. Xavier from what is it?
X-Men?
X-Men.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping for Deadpool.
Swearing and breaking the fourth wall. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, obviously ChatGPT doesn't know me very well, but based on my history of queries with ChatGPT, they came up with Dr. Xavier from X-Men, and I still have hair, so I don't understand that either. But
That's a more
But
apt description for me, I think.
the second question you wanna ask ChatGPT if you've been using it for any period of time. It made me rethink about privacy issues, and the fact that these elements are not sentient beings yet, but they sure can pay attention to what I've been doing better than I can.
Yeah, well, and we don't, I know we're running out of time, but I don't know if you saw the Optimus release from Tesla the last couple of
Oh,
days.
no, tell me about it.
So Optimus is the humanoid-like robot.
Oh, yeah, 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 I saw that. Go ahead, tell our listeners about it.
So the controversy is how much of that robot's actions were controlled by AI and how much were controlled remotely. So there's been some footage released of what Tesla is saying them training these robots, but some believe they're very remote controlled as opposed to AI controlled.
Yeah,
Some of the conversations that you saw them having were lifelike. They were casual, different accents, things like that. But it's interesting. But what I'm most upset about is not that. I can understand releasing, the robots and having them remote piloted or whatever for the moment. It's still
mm,
amazing. I don't like the fact that we didn't think up anything better than something that's already taken. Right? Optimus, we're going to steal from
yeah,
Transformers.
yeah, yeah,
We
I
can do
saw
better.
that, but that's Elon Musk. So
Correct.
he's a social media whipping boy. Right. Everybody, and I don't care for him. I don't care for his politics. That's me personally, but he
You pulled
just
that
needs to,
nickname from ChatGPT, didn't you?
yeah, he just needs to be quiet and go away. He's not going to make. He's the person that's just trying too hard to make friends, and all the wrong ones. Okay, well, that's it for the show, I guess.
Yeah.
If you'd like to know more about the show or you have some ideas, you can email us at the Pod Talk Network at gmail.com. We'll get your question on the air and try to answer it. If you have some areas you'd like us to go into, please go ahead and send them to us at the Pod Talk Network at gmail.com. Look for us on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast servers. Our bumper music is from Philip Gross, Rast, from the Free Music Archive. Everything you need to know, you can find at thepodtalk.net. Look for other shows like Circular Firing Squad and the show that I do on spatial computing called Vision Profiles. That's it for this episode. Thanks for subscribing to the Tech Savvy Professor.